Oh boy, my ears already hurt. This is Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy, known as Rockman World 2 in Japan. It's, I would say it's one of the few objectively not so good Mega Man games. Like, I already think the Game Boy Mega Man games are watered down compared to the NES versions, but look at this. Crash Man's name is spelled wrong. That's always funny to point out. So like I said, this game was made by a different company from Mega Man 1, 3, 4, and 5 on the Game Boy, and, you know, that kind of makes me want to not be so hard on them because they're clearly not experienced with the franchise, but they still managed to do a couple of things right, and I'll get around to talking about that, but this game's difficulty level is very, very low. It's very easy to just mash the Buster through many of the enemies and bosses, and I'll point that out as we go. But starting with Crash Man stage, or Clash Man, I guess, you can see that we have the very boring platforms that you have to wait to advance through. Now, talking about additions to this game compared to the first Mega Man Game Boy game, this was made after 3 on the NES, but before 4 on the NES. So we now have sliding, we now have rush utilities eventually, and we have E-Tanks. So look forward to lots and lots of complaints about free E-Tanks, like the one we just passed by, which you need Rush Coil to get to. Yes, for some reason, Rush Coil is an unlocked utility in this game. And all 3 Rush utilities are given out in the first 4 levels. And I hate this jump, by the way. Getting past this enemy is annoying to me because I'll sometimes jump and then the enemy will immediately spawn and hit me, sending me into the bottomless pit. So that's not, we're off to a bad start as far as game design goes. But you can see that we have the birds dropping the eggs in this part of the level, and they were very easy to bypass. You just have to, like, go faster than they are. And this E-Tank is completely free regardless of whatever rush utilities you have at the moment, because you just have to drop down and climb up the other ladder. It's not that hard. This game, I believe it was made in like half a year after Mega Man 1 on the Game Boy, so I imagine they were rushed for time. And yes, I know, Rush was introduced to the Game Boy games in this game, but not enough time for puns right now. We have Clash Man, I guess. And I will say that he's improved compared to his NES iteration. He still jumps whenever you shoot, but it's much, much easier to avoid the bombs this time around, and avoid him as well. I'm taking a bunch of hits here, but I still think this is like a decent fight compared to the NES version, which just took a while. His invincibility frames are lowered, but of course I had to embarrass myself and lose all of my life when he had just 1 hit to go, so that's unfortunate. I should really be using sliding a lot more, but when I see Mega Man 2 bosses, I think, oh, it's Mega Man 2, you can't slide. But you can slide in this game. So it's a little weird. Also, does anyone else think the sliding sprite is really weird? I mean, there's something going on with his arm in the graphic. I don't really know for sure. I don't think it's the same sprite as NES Mega Man. I guess they must have thought they had to draw on their own, or they didn't have access to Capcom's assets, but whatever. Something that's very strange about this stage is that it's actually the stage that when you complete it, it gives you Rush Coil, and yet they have an E-Tank in this level that you need Rush Coil to get to. Or you could use Rush Jet. Rush Jet is in another stage. So yeah, we've got the Clash Bomb, I guess that's an interesting name for it, and the Rush Coil. Rush works just like he did in Mega Man 3. That includes the Rush Jet and its ability to conserve energy for it by jumping around a lot, because it only takes away energy when you're standing on the thing. So moving on to Metal Man stage, I wanted to point out about this game's music that you can hear with your ears, of course, that it's very loud, high-pitched, screechy, and overall not good. But I actually think that the melody for a lot of the stage music in this game is not so bad. Like, just listen to Metal Man for a little bit, and if you can get past the high-pitched screeching, then it is actually not a bad song, and for them to compose all original music instead of porting something over for Mega Man 2, that's pretty cool. In fact, a lot of people agree that the melody for these stage themes is not so bad, which makes them the target of fan remixes online, so those are always a joy to listen to, in case you want to take away something positive from this otherwise not so great game. This section is a little annoying, because obviously you've got the drills, you've got those crushers that do a lot of damage and are annoying to get past. With the slide, it's not so bad, however. And we have the conveyor belts with the gear clowns that are very easy to get past because you just jump around a bunch. And I'm pretty sure a large energy spawned out of that enemy, but because it went up above the edge of the screen, the top of the screen, it just disappeared. So yeah, there are some glitches in this game too. And, you know, it was nice to be able to pick up an energy capsule and not have the game stop while your energy refills, but that leads to a glitch later on, and I actually exploited it at one point, so I'll be sure to point it out. Here's another free 1-up in addition to the one I got from that drill. Fun. So you just slide past these guys, and unfortunately I haven't gone very quickly. You can see that the knockback is a little bit buggy here because I seem to not get knocked back when I was on Rush Coil. It was a little weird. So we're up to the boss now. Metal Man's a very good example of a boss that you can just mash the Buster to get through. Because in this fight at least, he never jumped to the other side of the screen. The conveyor belt never changed direction, so it's very advantageous to just stand here and let the conveyor belt push you away from the metal blades. But the blades actually do only 1 point of damage, so as long as you're outpacing his damage, you're gonna win this every time. Like, some of the bosses do so little damage. I know that Mega Man 2 had some really, really difficult bosses, because there's guys like Quickman and stuff, but you can't reduce the difficulty to almost nothing, and I hate this music too, by the way. It's screechy and terrible. So yeah, the conveyor belt still pushes you to the left, which means it's going to take Mega Man a little while to walk to the center of the screen so he can get the weapon. That's always been amusing to me. Also, the screen flashes quite a lot when it has to load something. I don't know if that's just the emulator or something else. So we got Metal Blade and Rush Marine. Rush Marine gets one final last straw before it truly gets kicked out of the series for good. It still has one last outing on possibly the worst Game Boy Mega Man game of all time. So there you go. Alright, Woodman is up next. And not much I can really say about this. Metal Blades are still the game-breaking weapon that they once were. They still got a lot of ammo, and they still have a lot of attack power against a lot of different enemies. So use of them is highly recommended. I tend not to use weapons in this game, however, basically for the same reason that I tended not to use them in the later parts of Mega Man Dr. Wily's Revenge for the Game Boy. I don't really know. I think the Buster is just good enough, I guess. I've actually never fired a crash bomb in this game in my entire life, so I have no idea if it's any better. So yeah, they inserted a water segment into Woodman's level just to give Rush Marine a reason to exist, but the problem is that if you use Rush Marine here, then it completely negates any and all difficulty that segment had. If you come in here with Rush Marine, there's no difficulty, but if you don't have Rush Marine, then there is difficulty. Quite a lot of it, in fact, so, not a good design decision, in my opinion. They still should have had at least, like, one aquatic enemy or something. Throw in a fish or something. Gemini Man stage in Mega Man 3 did that. Alright, so we have the jumping chicken robots. Robot chickens. Huh. What do you know? I guess Mega Man did it first. So yeah, I'm just damage boosting through all of this because when you slide, you apparently don't take any knockback. Really strange. Woodman is just a complete embarrassment in my opinion. He used to be one of Mega Man 2's really tough challenges, but now you can see that the Buster actually gets through the leaf shield, and the leaves are much, much easier to dodge. You know, I'm getting the feeling that the developers of this game started out wanting to do essentially a port of Mega Man 2 because there are a lot of rooms similar to rooms from Mega Man 2, and the bosses still function similarly, but they thought, Mega Man 2 for the NES is much too difficult, let's tone it down a little bit. And unfortunately, they toned it down way too much. And of course, they still have the music problem. So we got Leaf Shield. I've never used this in Game Boy Mega Man either. Actually, I've never used a lot of the weapons in this game. Oh well, moving on to Airman, this is another stage with a really good melody, even though the instrument set is not so good. And this is actually a very frequently remixed song, so if you're into fan games or fan remixes, you'll probably be hearing this a lot. I know Rockman Exile, which is a ROM hack, it uses this song for Airman stage, and that's pretty cool. Always nice to have something different. They can't, like, live exclusively on remixes of old stuff, right? Alright, so moving on with the stage, not much to say here. The air tikis, as they're called, they're a lot smaller than they were because of the smaller screen size. So getting past them is actually kind of reasonable, I would say. And they still try to at least... Wow, that one had a bugged sprite. Did you notice that a chunk of it was missing? I didn't when I played through it the first time. Weird. But unfortunately, they had to keep these... whatever these things are called. They had to keep them. And you'll notice me playing very strangely here. This is not how I would do it normally, but if you let one of the cloud platforms get off screen, then it's very possible for them to get desynced. And I'm dead. So yeah, I did lose a life here because I was rushing through it. I wanted to get on the platform before it vanished off screen, otherwise there was a chance it would desync. And I got an extra life anyway, so it doesn't even matter. That death did not happen whatsoever. Pay no attention to the fact that I have less metal blades now. It's also difficult to fire metal blades in the direction you want when you're on those platforms because you have to move forward and hold up to fire it diagonally, which means that you could run off the platform. Alright, so... Oh yeah, it looks like you can change your weapon even when a projectile is on screen, so that's good too. That was something that Dr. Wily's Revenge missed out on, because you could still fire the time stopper and be forced to let it drain out, because you couldn't switch after it had been fired. Alright, so more screens with really weird graphics. The cloud just kinda got cut off there. That's strange. We're up to the boss already, and Airman is even easier than his NES counterpart, if you can believe it. I'm probably going to lose a life because of how low health I've got. But anyways, you know, just seeing them standing there when you enter the room is also kind of strange because... Oh, actually, sliding makes this fight a little bit easier. But wasn't it cooler when they dropped in from the top of the screen? It looked kind of weird, but it was cooler. Well, it looks like I'm actually not going to lose a life here. What do you know? So yeah, that was really easy. And you probably guessed this already, but I'm using Buster only for most of the bosses. There's one I can think of where I don't use the Buster. And I'm doing that just because I don't want to bother learning how the weapons work. Alright, so I couldn't use Rush Jet in that stage, of course, because this is the stage that gives you Rush Jet. And Air Shooter. Air Shooter's kind of okay-ish. I think I have used that against Clash Man. Man, that's so weird to say. So like with the previous Game Boy game, we have 4 main stages, and then we go to Dr. Wily's Castle, where there are going to be 4 bosses from Mega Man 3, the next game in this series, I guess. It's always so weird, like the Game Boy games have 4 bosses from one Mega Man game and then 4 bosses from another Mega Man game. And we have, I guess this is a funny little cutscene where Dr. Wily just backs into this wall, and then Mega Man stupidly runs forward and falls into the trap. And we are in the teleporter room. But these are not just boss fights. The Mega Man 3 Robot Masters that appear in this game, they have actual stages. And there's a free E-Tank. We've gone so long without seeing a free E-Tank that it was starting to get a little concerning. So there you go. At the very least, if nothing else, this game has okayish melodies in some of its songs, and it has actual stages for all 8 Robot Masters. So, that's cool. Still not sure why they can't just make it so that we can select from all 8 at the start of the game. I mean, did we really need that cutscene with Dr. Wily? I mean, you could have just made all 8 selectable from the start. I don't know why we're going 4 and 4 here. Mega Man 7 and Mega Man 8 do the same thing. They're kind of... I don't know why they do that, honestly. I also don't know why a damage boost past these enemies without destroying them. I guess I wanted to show off that, as you just saw, if you get hit while on a ladder, you can still control yourself, which looks really strange and is probably a bug. Weird, if useful, I suppose. So we're just going to damage boost past this guy. He doesn't do a whole lot of damage either. I don't think very many of the enemies at all do that much damage, except for the bulldozers. I think they do a lot of damage, but I've never gotten hit by them. Alright, so we're at the boss already. Considering what enemies we've been dealing with, I wonder who the boss could be. Bees, those claws, it's Hardman, of course. So Hardman is... he's the usual. For some reason, his hard knuckles actually block Buster shots now, and you don't want to be in his hitbox when he freezes everything after landing, because that could cause you to lose your invulnerability frames and get hit again. I actually lost a life against him, what do you know? Naturally, the weakness order is difficult to pinpoint because you have to use Mega Man 2 weapons against Mega Man 3 bosses and rediscover which of them is weak against a Mega Man 2 weapon. Alright then. So, other than the hard knuckles blocking your shot, Hardman's not that much different. I'd imagine he's still weak to the magnet missile because, spoiler alert, Magnet Man's in this game. These guys really should have had a boss intro, like, when you select the stage, because otherwise you'd never know what their names even are unless you got to the end credits. Or, of course, if you had played Mega Man 3 already. Then you would know. So, Hard Knuckle, I've never really used it. I don't know if it's good for anything. I don't even know if you can still control it. Anyways, there's no rush utilities in these 4 stages or anything. So we just have to get back to the area with the teleporters, and then we can select another stage. Alright, so this is Magnet Man's stage, obviously because we've got magnets here, and they actually serve something of a purpose, because you could let yourself get attracted to them and then let them carry you over the pits, but that's largely unnecessary. By this point, you have Rush Jet, and here's a pretty much free E-Tank, and it's got a disappearing brick that you don't actually need because you can jump high enough to reach it. Why is that brick there? There's no reason for that. Like, I guess it just goes to show what they must have been thinking when they made this, I guess. Anyways, we get our free E-Tank and we move on to the giant springs, followed by, what do you call these? They're not slinkies, but I just damage boosted through all of them because I don't really know if there's any way to avoid those. I know they die in one hit to top spin, which makes a return in this game as well, go figure. But there's no space to actually jump and use top spin, because remember, top spin has to be used while you're in the air. So yeah, it's weird. Going to see a lot of rush utility usage here because I do not want to deal with disappearing bricks. And really, I suppose one advantage of like having those first 4 bosses and then having 4 additional stages with more bosses is that you can design the ladder for around weapons and items obtained in the former 4, and Mega Man 8 actually does this very well in my opinion. But, you know, all of these disappearing brick challenges, did they not know that you would have Rush Jet by this point? And you can skip them all? I guess not. Really weird. Here's another E-Tank that I'm going to get, and I am lucky that the ladder glitch is in place because otherwise I would have fallen down and probably had to climb back up again. So this E-Tank isn't worth complaining about. You do have to kind of go out of your way to get it, but it's so not challenging to get. So I guess it is a free E-Tank. Yeah, we're going with that. It's a free E-Tank. I will complain about it. And, we are at the boss now, so Magnet Man is going to be the only boss that I use weapons against. I'm going to use the Metal Blades against him because his pattern is basically the same as Mega Man 3. He jumps around a lot, and he will be in the air for much of this battle. so using the metal blades and aiming them up at him makes him very easier to hit. But I suppose I could have used the Buster only against him because due to the small screen size, it's actually very easy to get under him when he fires the magnet missiles, so it's actually a pretty easy pattern to exploit. If you're directly under him, then the missiles have no chance of hitting him, and you can just slide out of the way when he descends. So yeah, pretty easy battle. We get the magnet missiles. They're basically the same as Mega Man 3. And we move on to either Top Man or Needle Man. I think I go to Needle Man next. And that will prove annoying because there's no Gemini laser to deal with the Needle Harrys. Needle Harry the Hedgehog. Jeez. Of course, I could try out all of my other weapons, but you know me, I am insistent on using just the Buster for some reason. Probably because I think it'll be amusing to shoot one of the little needles and have a 1-up pop out. Jeez. Well, you want to give me a free 1-up? You can give me a free 1-up. We're going right back to Mega Man 5 on the NES yet again, with all of those free extra lives. Not that extra lives have really mattered much. I mean, I guess they matter if you're down to, like, just one. Oh, look, we have a mandatory rush coil usage. And I just noticed that the weapon energy does not refill between stages for these secondary Robot Master stages. So, I guess that adds a little bit of a challenge. You have to actually manage the weapon energy that you're using. So, yeah, they've gotten some kind of challenge out of it, I guess. Hey, look, another free 1-up! You can tell I'm out of things to talk about when I have to point out every single free 1-up. And every single free E-Tank as well. The only thing guarding this is a single Meteor, so I'm calling that a free E-Tank. I mean, there should honestly be some kind of risk of death. Or, like, serious damage, I guess. That 1-up is not technically free. You can get it in a sort of abnormal way by using Rush Coil to go up that shaft, but you can get it that way if that is your prerogative. And we have a bunch of needles that you have to slide past. At least these do a decent amount of damage. So it looks like I'm going to either refill on my Rush Jet. No, me, what are you doing? Why aren't you using Rush Jet to bypass this? Just go up and get the energy Alright, destroy the Hammer Joe if you want. Hindsight is 20/20, I guess. We're moving on to Needle Man, who I believe has some way to loop his AI, but I've never really found it. None of the bosses seem to have attacks that change based on your position. I mean, like, it's random whether he will, or it comes out in a pattern. It's either random or a pattern whether he will do the head attack or he will just shoot the needle cannon. But if he does the head attack quite a lot, then this fight is basically free. Because he will just constantly do it over and over, and he got me this time, of course. But I think there's a sweet spot where you can stay, and he will constantly do the head attack, but its range isn't long enough to actually hit you, even though the attack only happens if you're within a certain amount of space. So I don't really know if that works for sure. Because sometimes he'll jump, sometimes he'll go for the needle cannon. I'm not really privy to the details here, but I don't really care because, as you can see, he decided to jump into that wall several times for no reason. This smells like a poorly programmed Robot Master AI to me, but what else do you expect from Dr. Wily? So we're getting the needle cannon for that. I'd imagine it's the same as Mega Man 3, of course. So that just leaves Top Man, who, I'm dreading this stage. Not because it's difficult, but because the music is awful. Again. Like, the melody might be okay, but just listen with your ears. Or don't. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if you muted this entire video to get rid of both the music and my voice, because those are a match made in the worst places in the world. Oh, and we're adding disappearing brick noises on top of that, but fortunately I have Rush Marine, so you can skip this section completely. Like with the water section in Woodman stage, I question the implementation here, because if you have Rush Marine, and you always have Rush Marine this time around, then you can just skip that entire section. Those are the only two Rush Marine segments in the entire game, so there's no real challenge there. You're not gonna run out of Rush Marine energy in the middle of it or anything, so I don't really get it. But this was still in the early days of game design, so I guess they weren't really thinking that hard, and this did have a rush production. So, yeah. This is one of the rooms, by the way, that makes me think they wanted to just port the stage from Mega Man 3, but they couldn't. So they had to get creative. And look, a free E-Tank! How many are we up to now? I think we're maxed out on E-Tanks because you can actually only have a maximum of 4 E-Tanks in this stage, and they're all saved, in my case, for the final boss. Because that is an endurance round, if nothing else. More rooms that look like they were copied off of Mega Man 3. And we have the top platforms. I don't trust those top platforms. I don't know why, but I don't. So let's just rush jet past them. And the boss is not too far in after. We're just going to pick up a free energy capsule. And you notice that when I paused the game, the energy stopped filling up until I unpaused. That clued me into an exploit that you can do in this game if you get a large weapon energy capsule, and I'm going to show that off at some point. I know I used it at some point. Alright, so Top Man, he's as easy as he always was. These tops are way too slow to have any hope of catching me, and his invulnerability frames are just too slow. Are there too few. Like, if he had more invincibility frames, he would actually have more chances to attack. But this pattern is so easy to learn and rigid anyways. Like, I'm all for... I don't really want ports of NES Mega Man to the Game Boy, so they should really be getting creative here. I guess the moral of the story is don't rush production, don't outsource to companies who have never made Mega Man games before unless they're seriously passionate about it, like Inti Creates was with Mega Man Zero. Anyways, we got Top Spin. It's actually improved over Mega Man 3 because it doesn't have any of the bugs. It's actually useful against a lot of different enemies. Of all the things to improve, Top Spin was one of the improvements this game made. Anyways, we have a new original boss called Quint. Apparently, according to the game's plot, he is the future version of Mega Man who has come back to kill the Mega Man of the past. I don't get it, but this is literally all he does. This is a huge disappointment. You've got a new boss character, and all he does is jump around on his stupid little jackhammer pogo stick, which we obtain as a weapon when we finally shoot him in the head enough times. And it's completely useless as well. It's as useless to him as it is to us, which is very unfortunate. I mean, it's the final boss's weakness again, but I'll demonstrate it. It's not really useful against him at all. You just get hit anyways, even though you're supposed to be bouncing on top of him. The Quint item, the Saku Garne? What? Just call it a pogo stick, dude. Alright, so yet again, Dr. Wily is going to fly out on his flying saucer and go all the way up to his little space domain, which looks like... I don't know, it looks like something. So here we are in the final stage, which has a background that looks like it came from a Salvador Dali painting. Oh yeah, I bet all of you know who that guy was, and what I'm alluding to. The Melting Clocks painting, which I guess... Okay, fine. There's a spike pit there. I didn't know that was going to be there. I haven't played this in so long, so that does trip me up sometimes. And it's got disappearing bricks yet again, but I'm pretty sure all of our... Oh no, our weapon energy doesn't refill, so we're going to have to pick up a couple of capsules in order to fix it. Alright, so I think we just passed by a free E-Tank, I'm not really sure, but this is the exploit I was talking about. You can pick up a large weapon energy capsule, and as one weapon is refilling, you can switch to another weapon, and all of the energy will be given to that weapon instead. The remaining energy. It's actually kind of interesting to be able to do that, but I'm pretty sure it was unintentional and a bug. So therefore, not as cool as I would like to believe. So anyways, I guess using a surrealist painting as inspiration for the stage background is meant to reflect how surreal this game is in general, because, I mean, think about it, the plot involves time travel, and the game itself still mentions nothing about the plot. It's all in the manual. So yeah, this is pretty surreal. Anyways, we have one final Rush Marine segment. You actually have to use Rush Marine here. There's no way to get through it without it. And they actually put enemies under the water. But unfortunately, you can just float right over them anyways, so it doesn't really make a difference. Did I use Top Spin against this guy? Yes, I did. Top Spin is still kind of okay, but not against enemies like this. Don't use it against that particular foe. And I really don't like this room. It's very annoying because you have to, I guess, move all the way to the left, tap right one time, and then make Rush Jet appear. Or you could jump on that disappearing brick, but it's still very likely that you're going to hit your head on the ceiling there and plummet down to the bottom screen and have to do it all over again. Alright, so I'm just going to pick this up and... oh. Yeah, I switched to the Buster in order to get Rush Jet off the screen and caused myself to lose the rest of the weapon energy. So that's the bad part of the bug. You have to actually wait for all of the energy to refill before switching to your Buster if that's what you want to do. Not going to bother waiting for that platform, so I'm just going to jet past it. I'm probably going to jet past this too. And there are spikes hovering on nothing. Why are there even spikes there? Because if you fall down, you're going to be sent back a couple screens anyways. Alright, so I busted out the Metal Blades just to get rid of these guys. I thought maybe I could pick up some weapon, or life energy rather, before the final boss. Alright, so this boss is very annoying. And is also very squished in. You can see that Wily is just barely able to fit inside that little thing. Why they couldn't just make the robot bigger so they could actually fit the full Dr. Wily sprite in there, I don't know for sure. But let's test out the Sakugarne against this guy. It is a pogo stick jackhammer, so it should be able to bounce on top of him, right? Yeah, as you can see, though I am able to bounce on top of him, I still get hit. Not a very good weapon at all, so here's the only E-Tank usage we're going to see in this game. It's all saved up for this one boss battle, because this boss has multiple phases. I'm pretty sure you could have picked up on that, considering that final bosses always have multiple phases, which means you get to listen to all of this glorious music for several more minutes as Dr. Wily floats over to the next part of his robot, which should be a little bit easier because this one at least doesn't jump around, it just fires energy bursts and bouncing bombs. I have no idea why it's bouncing bombs, but I should really be doing better against this than I am. And the annoying thing about this is, if I mess up and die, I don't get those E-Tanks back, so I'm going to have to deal with this guy with no E-Tanks at all. I guess the pattern shouldn't be that hard to learn. Anyways, this is the final phase. It just fires one tiny little missile, scatters a bunch of bombs, and then the face mask moves forward a little bit. Menacingly! I decided to get at least a little bit more Sakugarne use out before the game ended, but it didn't amount to much. This is weird. You have to shoot at the head. You have to shoot at Dr. Wily's head, but the skull is what flashes. I don't really get it. Anyways, that's kind of a disappointing boss. It shouldn't be difficult to learn that pattern if the other two are giving you trouble. Alright, so that's the end of Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. Thank goodness. I just have to sit through some credits, the enemy roll, and Rush Marine apparently works in space. I forgot to point that out. That's very strange. An underwater thing. Unless that's a new Rush form that I don't know about. So we fire a missile at Dr. Wily. He explodes. And then he crashes onto Earth. Well, I guess Dr. Wily's dead now. But there's still 3 more Mega Man Game Boy games, so yeah. Oh boy. The Havsube? What is this enemy name? The Chibi. Okay, I get that one. Clever. Very funny, Capcom. Or not Capcom, whoever named this. I think Capcom named him. The Wanan. Yeah, whatever. So yeah, that's Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. It is what it is. If you're watching through to the end here, then, I don't know what to tell you. It is what it is. Look with your eyes, listen with your ears. This is Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. A complete disgrace to Mega Man 2 and the NES, honestly. Even if it has positives, because there were positives, I did point out positives with this game. Like, it's still not worth it at the end of the day. I mean, can you imagine, like, paying actual money for this? The G Springer. That reminds me of somebody, I don't know why. The Peter Shy. Okay, that's what it's called. Okay. New Shotman. Is that a Robot Master we haven't heard from? Shotman? Jumping and Shotman? The Yambo. Oh, that's cute. That's very cute. The Hari Harry. I thought it was Needle Harry. The Hodai. Oh yeah, okay. So obviously these enemy names have just been left untranslated, which, well, most of them have been left untranslated, which is probably yet another nail in this game's coffin. I don't recommend playing this whatsoever. Like, you could play it once for the novelty if you were curious about how easy and unpolished this game really is. But for most others, I think you'll want to skip to Mega Man 3 on the Game Boy, and Mega Man 4 on the Game Boy, and especially try out 5 on the Game Boy. As for me, well, I think I'm gonna finally move away from Mega Man for a little bit, because there's other stuff I want to get to. I've been just doing Mega Man games when I feel like it, because if there's no other video to make, I guess I might as well make a Mega Man video. But now there's other things I want to try out, because there has been some news recently that has made me want to go back and play a certain other game, see if you can guess what it is. But you'll probably know as soon as I have the video up eventually. Anyways, this enemy roll lasts quite a long time because they're going through every enemy in the game and all of the Robot Masters. We still have 3 more minutes. So, how's your guys' day? Has everything been going okay? I've been just playing Game Boy Mega Man, I guess. And working on whatever else I want to work on. You guys have seen that trailer for a game I'm working on, so I've got that going for me. Explains why I've been doing so much Mega Man. I've officially made a Mega Man type game, so that's cool. And we just have a couple more enemies to go through before this finally is over with and I can move on to something else. And this song, it just loops over and over again. Man. Now I know why the Game Boy games don't have a staff roll in them, is because they, you know, the obvious joke, they don't want anyone to know who actually worked on this. Because it would be embarrassing. Of course, I could just look it up online anyways, and GameFAQs probably has all the info. Because it has to be in the manual, right? It's actually pretty strange of them to just not have a staff roll. I actually think that's weird. I wonder... like, there's gotta be a real reason they didn't actually have a staff roll. Goodbye, Quint. You will be seen precisely one more time in this series and then never again. Not even the stage in Mega Man 10 themed around the Game Boy exclusive Robot Masters. Alright, so is that it? Is that everybody? Looks like that's everybody. So, are you just gonna stare off into space for the rest of it, Mega Man? Very obvious recycled sprite from Mega Man 1 on the Game Boy. Thank you for playing. Well, at least somebody thanked me. Presented by... Don't leave me hanging now, game. Presented by... Of course, Capcom. Well, that's that. Bye, everybody.